Hello, I'm Martijn Gaat and this is Does Logistics Matter, a podcast on trends and innovations in supply chain and logistics. Answering yes to the question today is Byron Bennett, CEO of Zergratran. In this episode, we talk about his plans to create a green shipping corridor through Colombia parallel to the Panama Canal, how high-speed Maglev-powered skids will autonomously move containers through the 80-mile tunnel, and how two fully automated ports on each side of the tunnel will create the biggest cross-dock operation the world has ever seen, enabling the transfer of a container from a ship on one side to a ship on the other side within 30 minutes. Hi, Byron. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Martin. Thank you very much for having me.
Byron, the first question on this podcast is always, does logistics matter?
All you have to do is go to the grocery store to see that. Between the increased prices and the things that are missing, the answer becomes very obvious.
Yeah, the answer is yes. What is your link to logistics? How did you end up working in the logistics industry?
Oh, that's a story in and of itself because I do not have a background in logistics and supply chain. I ended up in this space because of this specific project. Saw an opportunity, a need, and decided to jump right in. And 4 years later, we're still pulling it together and probably have another 8 to 10 to go.
Well, you said this project. Well, we talked before the show, so obviously I know about the project, but the listeners have no idea what this project is. Maybe you can tell them something about it.
Yeah, the short is that we're trying to build an alternative to the Panama Canal, more of a supplement to the canal. Right now, you have some primary marine trade choke points around the world, and the largest being at the Panama Canal. 90% of our goods go by sea, and most of that between the North Atlantic and North Pacific. 5% used to cross between the two oceans using the Panama Canal. Now that's down to 3%. No fault of the canal at all. And the canal has been expanding to accommodate larger ships.
Yeah.
However, global trade volume just keeps going up. So the percentage that it can handle is going down because the lock system uses a lot of water and a lot of energy. So only about 50 ships can cross per day. Now, there's always a 2 to 12 day wait to cross. And for the container ships, it's more like the 10 to 12 day wait to cross. So if more ships could cross there, 10 times more would if they could. Because if you can't cross there, you have to go the longer ways around. The next option is always going through the Suez Canal. Mm-hmm. But after that, then you have all the longer ways around. When you think about it, the Panama Canal was built to cut off about 8,000 miles of the trip between Europe and Asia. And everything that can't cross at the canal has to go longer ways around. And that's just a lot more fuel, pollution, spoilage, loss at sea,
for sure,
etc.
Yeah, so if you cut off 8,000 miles, that's a huge benefit in terms of savings on carbon footprint.
Oh, absolutely.
And you are going to create an alternative or a substitute route for the Panama Canal. Where are you going to do that?
Now, we're going to do it across northern Colombia, and let me explain a little bit. There are hundreds of different types of ships that use the canal. We're specifically talking about container ships, and transferring containers across.
Yeah.
So across northern Colombia, we're going to connect ports on the Atlantic side and on the Pacific side with an underground tunnel that takes the containers from one side to the other. So instead of the ships going across the canal, the ones that want to can drop off on our Pacific side, for example.
Hmm.
We send the containers across using a maglev system, and we reload that ship with goods from South America so it can go back to Asia with full loads. Currently, 60% of the ships that go back to Asia go back empty.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, and also, I guess with your solution, there's no longer a limit to the number of containers that can be on a ship. I think the current limit for yeah, you call them the Panamax vessel, the vessels that are just large enough to fit through the canal. I think the maximum capacity is somewhere around 14,000 TEU.
Yes, Martin, it used to be the case that ships above 13,000 TEUs couldn't cross the canal. With the expansion, they were recently able to pass a 16,000 TEU ship
Yeah.
across the canal. But that is an exception, and that won't be the norm just because of the effort that it took to make that happen and the amount of water and the amount of electricity that it takes to move these ships across the canal. Um, Everything else above 16,000 already immediately has to go longer ways around, primarily through the Suez. So our value proposition is adding another route across Central America that will supplement an alternative to the Panama Canal for moving containers across, and just containers. Every other type of ship will still go through the
Yeah.
canal. But our idea is pretty much, we liken it to adding a highway in Los Angeles. It's so congested in Los Angeles that
Hmm.
if you build a new highway, it's going to be used. And where global trade works is traffic trade is sent the easiest and the most efficient and the most cost effective
Yeah.
ways. So the ships that are not going through the Panama Canal and taking longer ways around, if they could go through the canal, they
They
would,
would.
because it would be cheaper and more efficient. So we want to provide another option for moving containers across so that we can increase the percentage of trade that goes directly between the North Atlantic and North Pacific and get goods to where they need to be faster.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about cutting off a couple weeks on the delivery of a container of food from China to Europe, then it matters. It's very significant.
Yeah, and with the increased focus on sustainability and an increasing number of countries passing legislation on carbon footprints, that's going to play a major role moving forward as well. Because if you cut off all those miles with steaming these diesel engines steaming across the ocean, it's gonna save that's going to save a lot as well.
Absolutely. Because right now you have a situation where most of the ships that return to Asia return empty,
Yes.
60%.
Yeah.
So if they don't have to make that second part of the trip from where we are to the New York, New Jersey port or to Europe,
Yeah.
then that cuts off a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of pollution. But we're also addressing some of the wait time and the idling time that causes a lot of pollution off of each of the ports. The
So
more we can reduce that, the better the environmental impact will be.
so So Byron, can you explain how the system works? And let's just take an example. So we're going to fill up a container ship with 20,000 containers. We're going to do that in Shanghai in China. It's going to be filled with all the stuff that they make for us there. We're gonna need to go to New York. We're gonna need to go to some destinations in South America, and we have to drop off a couple of thousand of containers in Rotterdam, obviously as well. We're not going to fit through the Panama Canal because we're a 20,000 container ship, and we don't want to go all the way around. So we're gonna use the Zergratran alternative. So can you explain how that could work when your solution has been fully implemented?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, the structure of the facility. Now, we're going to have two fully automated ports, one on the Atlantic side and one on the Pacific side,
Mm-hmm.
and connect them underground by a tunnel around 20 meters below ground. So that's the basic structure.
Yeah.
However, um, one of the largest challenges of this project is what to do with the 15 million plus tons of excavations that we're going to take out.
Yeah.
But it turns out that that is an opportunity for us in our case. When London finished the Crossrails project, they had to
Yeah.
ship a lot of the excavations west. Well, what we're going to do with a lot of them is we're going to build two purpose built islands to accommodate our port facility. So on each coast, we're going to build a 5-mile island with a center canal that the ships will come into
Mm-hmm.
and dock in the berths at angles, like parking spots. And
Yes.
essentially, each of our facility will be able to accommodate up to 100 of these 20,000 TEU container ships.
That's
So
that's huge.
massive. We're talking uh, about the same capacity of the port of Singapore or Los Angeles, Long Beach. So basically, that 20,000 TEU ship would come in on our Pacific side
Yeah.
berth, and then our system right now, this ship would take about 2 weeks to turn over.
Yeah.
Um, but we wanted to do it a lot faster than that and have a much more efficient system. So, what we've come up with is we're essentially bringing these ships into a warehouse or a production style facility. So, in our facility, you won't have cranes and trucks next to these ships.
Okay.
What we've done to try and take a couple pieces out of the cycle time
Mm-hmm.
is put all of our cranes above the ships. So right now, only about 6 or so of these large cranes can fit next to each
Yeah.
ships. But what we're doing is untethering the cranes and putting a crane above every single container on that ship. So um, we're going to be able to clear almost a row at a time. So this is going to allow us to turn over the ship much faster by putting hundreds of cranes on the
And
solution
these cranes
versus
can move. Yeah, I'm not sure. I would say vertically and horizontally and laterally. So across all the
correct,
different axes,
correct,
to independently pick up containers and take them off the
correct.
ships.
Correct. These cranes will pick them up, bring them to the side of the ship, deposit them onto a sled that will take them through the security station and through the tunnel to the other side where the process is reversed.
And
So
this is not this is these sleds are not moving on snow. I'm pretty sure of that because it's Colombia. So you and
they're
I usually they don't hear the word sled and container. So how are these sleds going to move?
yes, they're going to move on maglev tracks. Um, taking a page from on dock rail, our tracks are going to come right up next to each ship,
Yeah.
so that the cranes can just deposit the container onto the sled, then it moves off. The next one comes right back in to position. So there's always this continuous production line set up, both above the ship and beside it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the unique things about using Maglev to do this is it means we can now sort these containers and send them across independently. But also, we can transfer them to any of the other 99 ships on that side. So that 20,000 TEU ship, instead of a couple weeks to turn over, we're now talking about 4 to 6 hours to turn over the whole ship, because we're putting so many
Yeah.
cranes on each ship itself.
You're
So we're just talking about a massive increase in efficiency.
Yeah, you're actually talking about the largest cross docking facility in
Yeah.
history.
Yeah, we're going for a transshipment facility that's the de facto hub of global trade, because we'll be able to um, cross dock between 100 ships on each side.
Mm-hmm.
And when those containers are sent across, we're sending across independently. Most people don't know that there's a rail next to the Panama Canal to take containers across, but it
Yeah,
can only handle about 500,000 containers per year.
per
And that's
year.
roughly less than 2 days worth of ships crossing.
Yeah, I was
If
saying that.
if
Yeah.
every ship was a container ship, which is
Yes.
not the case.
No.
So it's not very efficient. We couldn't use rail. We couldn't even use high speed rail, because once you take those 20,000 containers and line them up, well, that's the entire track.
Yeah.
So we had to go with something that would be more efficient. And that's why we're going with Maglev, so we can send them across independently versus in trains.
So
And
can you explain that? So I know that maglev stands for magnetic levitation.
yes, sir.
So just in layman's terms, can you explain to the audience how that works?
Yeah, most people are familiar with the magnetic levitation, Maglev for short, in relation to the high-speed trains of Japan and
Yeah,
China.
China.
Those are the two countries with the most implementation. But the technology's been around for decades and is well proven. And recently, we were introduced to a company, Max Vogel, in Germany, that's testing a system in the port of Hamburg. They have a 40-foot container floating on a maglev track. So the technology is there and is proven, and we decided to use it in this case to help us achieve those speeds. So it's the
Yeah.
first time it's going to be used in this manner for transporting containers, but the technology is proven.
Yeah, well, if you can transport humans at that speed,
Yeah,
then for sure a container filled with like equipment can move at that speed as well.
absolutely. The big
Probably the
difference.
container could maybe even move faster than a unit that holds people.
Well, that's the thing. People don't weigh as much.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Those
true.
containers, basically, we're going for a top speed of about 200, 250
Yeah,
miles
that's
per
miles per
hour.
hour, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that we can move the containers across in under 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's our target. Under 6 hours for turning over a ship, and under 30 minutes for getting the container across.
Yeah.
Those are our targets. So that speed would also allow us to, basically, these containers are so heavy that we have to control the build up to the speed, as well as
Yes.
the come down
Yeah,
from
yeah,
the
yeah. You
speed.
can't go Tesla
Yeah,
ludicrous mode with
n-
a
no.
with a container, because all the stuff will be on one side and probably it will just fly out the door.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah,
that, and it's just, yeah, um, just a massive thing that we need to
yeah.
monitor. But
No, I
that speed
understand.
would allow us to do that and um, accommodate the braking and collision management.
Yeah. So one of the benefits I know of these of moving things by maglev is that it is pretty energy efficient.
Yeah, it's actually the most energy efficient, especially when you get up above speeds above 200 miles per hour. The studies have shown that it's cheapest, but at those speeds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how are you going to power this? Because
Oh
I'm guessing
gosh.
it's gonna that it's gonna be you're gonna need a lot of power to move all these.
We're going to need a lot of juice.
Yeah.
Well, we've decided to go back in time with the DeLorean and find that lightning bolt. Uh,
Nice.
oh, well, I kid, but essentially the region is the poorest in Colombia and doesn't have much infrastructure. So
No.
everything we need, we're going to have to build.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at all the green forms of energy production,
Hmm.
and we're looking at testing a few exotic things. So we're going to have solar, we're going to have
Solar, wind.
hydroelectric, uh, we're going to have wind, we're going to test some of the sailing systems that are out there. And
What do you mean with
because,
this with the sailing system?
yeah, there are now hydrogen based systems that hydrogen and saline based engines. I'm not sure if you've heard of uh, nanocell flow. I forget the exact name of it, but they have a saline powered engine for a sports car and a plane.
Ah, okay.
Um,
But will that system generate energy that can be put into the system?
That's the thing. We're going to look at various different forms. My only point here is we're going to look at everything that's out there and see what we can do, see what will work. And because this is uh, the second largest water producing region and rainfall area in
Yeah.
Colombia, we're also going to look at things like if we can siphon lightning. The average lightning bolt is about 3 to 5 miles long, and our tunnel is going to be about 80 miles long.
Yeah.
So we're going to see whether or not we can set up to do that in an efficient way. The
So actually
trans,
catch lightning bolts and just use the energy in those
yes,
and just as power.
yes,
That's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then you start looking on the storage and on the battery side.
Yes.
It's a massive project on from every aspect, from every angle.
But you are looking.
Um,
I'm hearing you say hydrogen, hydroelectric, wind, solar,
yes,
lightning. The lightning is my favorite. I think that should be definitely be spectacular. But so these are so everything that you are using is going to be what do you call it? A green or like or
one hundred
zero
percent.
emission.
100%.
Yeah.
That is core to our company and our beliefs that we want to create a sustainable model that people can use in other parts of the world and show that we can do a project of this scale in a sustainable way. So every form every form of energy that we use will be green, and we think that we're going to be the first green corridor, and definitely the first green shipping corridor. But yes, everything green.
Wow, that's yeah, it's really ambitious and absolutely cool. And you are going underground, and I guess because I need to look at like the Google Maps Earth view to really look at northern Colombia, but I think there's like that's not a highly populated area, so it's 100% nature, I guess. It's is it
Yeah,
woods, is it
it's
jungle,
very
what's
dense jungle in most of what we're
yeah,
gonna have to go through.
and we want to keep
Um,
that intact, right?
Absolutely. And that's why proposals for doing other canals in that region, up the Atrato River, et cetera, haven't moved forward because they would just be too destructive to the environment.
Yeah.
Because our tunnel is going to be about 20 meters below ground, that deep, partly to accommodate for seismic activity.
Yeah.
But because we're going to be that deep, we're going to have minimal impact on the surface. And that's the primary reason why we've gotten permission from Colombia to move forward with this project. They gave us permission to move forward with pre-feasibility and conditional approval to move forward with feasibility. So we're good to go there. And the reason is because we're going to be very uh, non-intrusive.
Yeah. Yeah, plus building a canal would add another what you were saying, another 3%. So that's not really adding anything because the percentage you are adding in terms of capacity is way higher.
It should be, and we believe that it will be. We have to walk the talk the talk, and make it happen. But that's what the numbers suggest.
Now you're talking about pre-feasibility and feasibility. These are phases that you are talking about. So what does the project look like from start to end? I mean, it starts with
Yeah, good.
pre-feasibility, but so can you explain what that entails?
Yeah, most projects you have your different phases of the project: pre-feasibility, feasibility, construction.
Yeah,
With some, you have a few others. Ours, we've broken them down into these three phases, not just to satisfy the requirements of the government agencies, but also to make the project manageable. This
yeah,
is such a massive project, simple idea, obvious need, but because of the size of the project, it's very complicated.
yes,
So the three phases: pre-feasibility is when we look at all the data, all the public data that we can gather, and put it into a package for the government of Colombia that addresses all of the important aspects,
yeah,
including environmental, including financing and funding the project. We have to outline all of those things, but that's primarily data and brain work.
yes,
Feasibility gets into the groundwork and the on the ground studies and preparing for construction and sourcing and identifying all of our partners. That's the point when we'd also put out an RFP to the large construction companies
yeah,
like your Dragados and your Bechtel, and the large port operators like PSA, DP World, uh, uh, APM.
yes,
Um, at that point, getting ready for construction. And construction is when we're let those TBMs go and start the whole process. But by that point, everything will be fully laid out.
mm-hmm.
Um, so that's the how the three phases are organized. Financially, we're thinking it's going to be about 5 million to get through the first phase,
Yes,
but because we already have permission to move forward with feasibility, we're looking to pull in up to 75 million now, so we can go ahead and jumpstart feasibility and go ahead and put a deposit down on our tunnel boring machines from Herrenecht in southern Germany, and do what we can to minimize the overall time to market, which right now we're looking at 8 years, about 9 to 12 months for pre-feasibility, another 12 to 18 for feasibility, and another 6 years of construction. So we're going to do what we can to start as much as we can of feasibility now. And that includes all of our R&D on the tracks and on the cranes, etc. Pre-feasibility, we're looking at about 5 million. Feasibility, we're looking at about 500 million. And for construction, we're looking at about 15 billion. Now, those numbers will revise during pre-feasibility, but we think those are fairly good numbers. When you were talking about how the land is not very developed, because of that, our acquisition cost and our overall cost per mile will be a little lower.
Okay. So how are you going to get the funding in? So what have you got lined up to attract the right investors?
A couple of things. First, we've been taking in friends and family, angel capital, so far to get us to where we are. But now we just launch a Regulation A public offering to raise up to $75 million. And we believe that through that offering, we'll bring in the funds that we need for this round. Plus, we're also talking to some significant family offices and banks about coming in with some funds now. We've been offered a loan from one bank in Qatar, and we're speaking to a few families about putting in like 5 million plus. So we know this month we'll be able to get the funds we need in for pre-feasibility and to hopefully enough to start to jumpstart feasibility.
Yeah, and I know that I mean, obviously with these with a budget like that, you need large investors. But if I read it correctly, then the minimum investment, if you would like to say, okay, the largest infrastructural project, the most, I mean, this is one of the most significant supply chain projects out there. I want to be a part of that. I want to be able to say, I helped build it. If you have, I think it's starting at $500, and
Yeah,
then you can say, that 80-mile tunnel. That's my money. That's in there. I enabled that. So
yeah.
that's
The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has the distinction of having built the Panama Canal. Granted, the French started it, but they finished it. In this case, we are going to build the tunnel. It will be the tunnel. Like when you say the canal, it will be the tunnel.
The tunnel,
And
because what's the biggest tunnel now? Do you know?
I forget exactly. I should remember, but I think it's only about 25, 30 miles. So we will be by far much larger. But yes, our current Regulation A offering allows us to accept investments as low as $500. So if someone wanted to just put 500, 1,000 on this so they can get their name on the wall and be a part of something that's going to uplift the entire industry and benefit everyone,
And especially the climate, because it's going to be it has a very positive effect on the climate. And getting your name on the wall. I mean, it's 80 miles of tunnel wall, so you have quite some wall to put names on.
Yes, very significant. When we're talking about these numbers and 15 billion to get this done and this opportunity to come in on the equity side. The thing is, when Colombia gave us permission to move forward with pre-feasibility and conditional approval for feasibility, what they also said is that after pre-feasibility, we can apply to be in the national budget. Now, doing that will allow us to sell government-backed bonds, even if they're just backing 500 million or whatever the case is. But that means that this may be the only equity round we have.
Yeah.
The next round is a debt round where all of the banks and billionaires and infrastructure investors that follow us will come in with 500, 100 million. Your teachers, your California Water and Power, that's when those guys will come in after pre-feasibility, when there's government backing behind the project. But right now, small investors have an opportunity to come in through our offering and be a part of just jumpstarting, I like to say jumpstarting the transportation infrastructure revolution. Because everyone now understands that to really solve the supply chain issues, you need to fix the infrastructure. So you see a lot of money going towards upgrading infrastructure right now. There's a lot of money going into the logistics software, but the software can't fix the supply chain problems until we fix the infrastructure. You'll see that we're also in the EU Tech Chamber. And that's because after the Ever Given got stuck in the Suez, they reached out to us and asked us to join the Tech Chamber. It cut one of the 5 primary routes to Europe and affected 15% of trade. But now you see that everyone in that region is now pouring a lot of money into infrastructure to try and upgrade it there. So a problem like that doesn't have the same effect as we move forward. Everyone now globally understands the need to upgrade our infrastructure. And we think that we're going to be at the forefront of it. And anyone that wants to participate in that should jump on board.
Byron, thank you very much for coming on the show and, talking about this project, which is, just for me, I'm a warehousing guy. And what I love in these warehouses is I love the automated warehouses with all these robots moving. And what you are saying, these huge ships sailing in, containers being automatically taken off these ships and whisked away on these sleds or skids through the tunnel. It's just, oh man, I can't wait to see it in operation. So, and it's only 8 years away. So it's going to take some patience, but it sounds amazing, and I'm looking forward to seeing it happen.
Thank you. If you go to our website, Zergratran.com, you will see a CGI rendering of what the process is going to look like on a top level. But yeah, I can't wait either. This is going to be the most significant upgrade to our global system. I guess kind of since the invention of the container itself.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that. Thank you, Byron.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. Love the show. Appreciate it. And I love the fact that you're so knowledgeable about the space.
Thank you for listening to Does Logistics Matter? For more on trends and innovations in supply chain and logistics, visit the blog on logisticsmatter.com. If you want to be a guest on this podcast, please send an email to podcast@logisticsmatter.com or connect to me via LinkedIn and send me a message. This podcast was produced by Dimitry VleugelThe. The music is based on a sample by Ragaman and produced by Michael Spengler. This episode was supported by Zergratran. Zergratran is an innovative and sustainable high-capacity transportation company that is building the world's first tunnel to expedite the shipping of goods between the North Atlantic and the North Pacific. In doing so, it will offer faster, smarter, safer and cheaper solutions to existing alternatives. For more information, visit Zergratran.com. That's Zergratran.com.